12:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. My name is Dave McRae. This is episode 135 of McRae Live. It is Friday, January the 15th, 2021. And on the program today, I want to talk to you about, Scream 5. Scream 5. It was announced yesterday that we were 1 year away from the release of Scream 5. I'm sure Frank Riker is very excited about this. Listen, I wouldn't say that I don't dislike Scream. I think the novelty has worn off with Scream. I think it wore off after the first movie. I think the first movie was a great one and done sort of thing. Certainly, like any horror genre and any horror series, slasher series, you can find ways to extend it and keep it going. And it's not that, listen, the series has its fans. There are people that love every one of these movies. There are people that love the first two, don't like the third one, love the fourth one. There are people that like the third one, don't like the fourth one. There are people that like the first and the third one, but don't like the second or the fourth. I mean, it's across the spectrum. Scream is not one of the big ones for me. I'll take Freddy, Michael, and Jason before Ghostface. That could also be because of my age. I mean, when Scream came out, I was already 17. So I didn't... No, man, I wasn't old, but I didn't grow up with Scream. Like when most kids get into horror, at least back when I was a kid, it was when you're like 5 or 6 or 7, right? And at that time, the big ones were Freddy and Jason, and Michael was virtually non-existent in the 80s. But certainly he was around kind of. And then, but if it wasn't for my brother Neil, who was the one responsible for getting me into horror and the one responsible for getting me into Halloween, I may not be a Halloween fan today. I don't know. Or I may have been... H2O may have been my first introduction to the Halloween series and character, like it was for many of you. Halloween H2O was your first step into the world of Michael Myers. So anyway, long story short... I was already 17 when Scream came out. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it at home on VHS, and I liked it. I thought it was a really cool movie. I'd never seen anything like that before. And the draw, to me, wasn't really Ghostface. I mean, that was kind of cool. But the draw, of course, was it's directed by Wes Craven. It's the same guy that did the first Elm Street. Oh, fuck. Let's check it out. So watched it, and I really liked it, and of course, when you're 17, you don't necessarily... pick up on the, you're not thinking about it in a really kind of deep kind of way. You just think it's kind of a cool movie. And then as the years go by, I realized, it was a little meta, not quite, New Nightmare meta, but it was very spoofy, self-aware kind of movie, right? Poking fun at the slasher genre. And I enjoyed it. And then, of course, a year later, Scream 2 comes out. I actually saw Scream 2 in the theater. Did I see it in the theater? I want to say I did. Anyway, and I didn't really like it. I didn't not like it. In retrospect, I've watched it since, and I enjoy it. I like it better than 3. I think most people do. But then 3, I liked like the first half of 3, and then I found the reason and the motivations and the character motivations and the whole sort of pulling back the curtain on what is going on. I'm just like, it felt like you needed to think up something, it was the brother, it's like, all right, of course, somebody we've never fucking heard about. Anyway, so, and then you get to Scream 4, and it's hard to believe that more time has passed since, or actually the same amount of time, no, Scream 4 was 2011, so almost the same amount of time has passed since Scream 3 and Scream 4 that the Scream 4 and, well, actually the exact same amount of time will have passed once Scream 5 comes out. So, just a little bit, a little backstory, little thing there on my Scream kind of, in case you're just joining me, maybe you don't know who the fuck I am and you're new, I don't know. That I'm not saying I don't like Scream, I do, but I'm not hardcore. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Well, when they said that they were making a Scream 5, naturally, and they're just going to call it Scream, oh, okay, I'm sure there'll be a Friday the 13th movie just called Friday the 13th, even though it's a sequel. And then they'll do, hey, let's do a sequel to the original Elm Street and call it A Nightmare on Elm Street. There are reasons why they're doing that, folks. I know people are like, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. Why are they doing that? They're doing it because Scream 5 will no doubt be a soft reboot. It will. Exactly like Halloween 2018. It's a sequel, but it will be designed in a way like 2018 was. This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm feeling. That it is designed in a way that you do not have to watch any of the previous Screams to enjoy Scream 5. Now, it will help, naturally, because you'll be able to make the nostalgic connections and know who everybody is. And, you know, it's not that it's void of that. It is always in your best interest to watch, you know, it's like, for example, you don't need to see any of the other, I don't give a fuck what you think about them. I'm just saying, when you think about it narratively, you don't need to see the previous Star Wars movies to enjoy The Force Awakens, for example, is what I'm saying, right? You can understand how it's structured in that way, but of course it helps so that when this old guy with a fucking dog shows up, you're like, oh, yeah, cool. You know what I mean? It helps, right? Same thing happened with Halloween 2018. You know, and the same thing's going to happen with Scream. No doubt about it. And, you know, because they are introducing this concept and these ideas to a new generation. And, you know, I'm very curious to see what the catalyst is going, because nobody's talking on landlines anymore. You've heard me say this 1,000 times. Nobody's talking on landlines. Nobody's, it's not, and when I say nobody, I'm talking about generally speaking. And, you know, and I have no doubt that the writers of Scream 5 were aware of this, just as we were aware of it when we were doing It's Me, Billy, that we needed to be able to justify, if we wanted to use landlines, which they probably won't. They'll probably move the technology into modern times and they'll be using some other form. I mean, cell phones, sure, but who the fuck talks, you know, and you've heard me say this 1,000 times. Very few of us actually talk on our phones anymore, right? I mean, you're chatting and you're scrolling and you're texting and you're WhatsApping and you're TikToking and you're, you know, all this kind of, and emailing, but nobody's saying, hey, Jim, yeah, so you want to hang out tonight? Yeah, let's do that. No, nobody's doing that anymore, right? You know, you've heard me say, these are not phones. They're pocket computers that just so happen to make phone calls if you wanted to at some point. That's where it is kind of now, right? So certainly I can see them utilizing more of today's technology. I think they're going to do that. And maybe they might have some throwback scene, like maybe, you know, Courtney Cox still has a landline. You know what I mean? Here's grandma still got her landline, right? Which makes perfect sense. I mean, that's what it's like with It's Me, Billy. You know, we wanted to use landlines in It's Me, Billy and the old school rotary phone shit, but we have to be able to justify it because clearly 20-something-year-old girls in 2020 are not fucking using rotary phone landlines. So we needed to be able to justify it. And it's justified in the movie, of course, once you see It's Me, Billy. So the same thing could happen here. I could see them tipping their hat to, you know, some scene, maybe, you know, maybe it's not a rotary phone, but maybe it's like a cordless phone or something. Maybe Dewey still got one or something. I don't know. Who the fuck knows, right? But the new cast, no, there's no way they're going to be doing that. It doesn't make sense. I don't believe it. So the believability has to be there. So, you know, I mean, I'm curious to see this. I don't dislike Scream, the Scream franchise, as I said, but I wouldn't say that I'm over the moon about it. I do find it interesting that the directors that directed Ready or Not, which was mostly shot here in Toronto, they have helmed this. So when you watch Ready or Not, obviously that's a very fun, I don't want to say spoofy, but it's got the right sort of wit and quick quip style and energy that the early Scream movies were known for. So that doesn't mean it's going to be good, but, you know, you have two directors who have the correct directing sensibilities when it comes to that kind of style. So they can sort of do what they did with Ready or Not, take the template of that part of Ready or Not anyway, right? Not the whole thing, but that part of it. The energy and the quippy and the, you know, the little kind of having, you know, the fun element of Ready or Not, because it's also important to remember too that Scream is not a, you know, it's got humor. You know, it's got self-aware spoofy shit. You know, it's not totally serious every fucking minute, like the original Elm Street or something like that, right? So the two directors, okay, cool, that's great. But very little is known about the plot. I do have several sources, as you guys know, that reach out to me, mostly in regards to the Halloween franchise. These are people that I've known for a while, met them obviously working in the industry myself. I've met them at various points in time. You know, they haven't told me too much about Scream. I've poked around a little bit, but there's very little information to go on. There's more information to go on Halloween Kills. Very little when it comes to Scream 5. But we can certainly look at this logically, right? And that's what I wanted to sort of dive into here in this show today, was just kind of to show you that, or to making predictions on what you think may happen in the world of Scream is not that difficult. It's really not rocket science, because it's about probability. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be right? But it's about probability. When you know how these narratives usually go, what direction they're likely to go in, what is sort of the standard when it gets to this point in a series. Like when I made the Halloween, I guess it was in the summer of 2019, I uploaded my Halloween sequel concept idea to Halloween 2018. And there are things in that concept that have come true in what we know about Halloween Kills. And people have often said, they stole your idea, Dave, or they stole your ideas. No, they didn't steal anything. It's just that when you know how it doesn't take a genius that when you look at a certain movie, or you look at the series, or you look at where they've, the directions, and you know that it's going to pick up probably at the, the night where they're going to, and you can piece things together in a high realm of probability of what is likely. It doesn't mean it is going to happen, but what is a likely scenario? What's a likely direction based on what we know, right? And it's important to know that obviously these things can change when new information arises. But it's not difficult to do that. It really isn't. I mean, I told you Tommy Doyle was going to come back before Tommy Doyle came back. And it wasn't because I had inside information on that. It was because I knew that is, I forget what was the reason. I have to dive back into my videos, but it was based on something that I had said. And sure enough, he came back. I didn't think Lindsay was going to come back, though. I was surprised that but not surprised at the same time, right? Bracket, that didn't surprise me at all. So, I mean, and then the story, I said that Laurie, and I said this long before anybody said anything about this. This is going back to like early 2019, maybe even late 2018. I said Laurie will likely not be a major player in Halloween Kills. And there are rumors and, that may be the case. That may be the case. It's not that she's not in it, but of course and why did I say that, right? Why did I say that? Was it because somebody told me that? No. It was because when you look at the logical, and I know I'm talking about Halloween here for a second, but I'm making a point, an overall arcing point here, right? When you look at where the 2018 film left off, right? And we knew that it was going to be taking place the same night, right? And she's taken to the hospital, and they're making 3 movies out of this. It's very difficult for us to believe that she's mortally wounded and within 10 minutes she's back out there again fighting Michael. It would make more sense that she spends most of her time in the hospital and then the fight is brought to her. Now, whether it is brought to her or not, who knows, right? But the idea that she would get stitched up and then she's out there again in 10 minutes, I don't believe that. From a writing standpoint, it's poor writing, right? It's poor writing. So that's why I made that prediction. And from what I'm hearing from my sources, that could be true. So it's not that it doesn't take a genius to think of these things. It's understanding storytelling. It's understanding what is likely, what is the most likely, highest probability. And you can more often than not, when you dive deep into that and do some deep cuts, you can be right more than you're wrong. So when it comes to Scream 5, I think the likely scenario here is, and I don't think this is rocket science, I think many people would love to see the original clan back together again in some sort of hurrah. And I think you're going to see that, but I don't think they're going to be main players. I think this is more of a send-off movie. I think this is more of a passing of the torch. It would not surprise me if Dewey dies, or if Gail dies, or dare I say it, Sydney dies. I don't think Sydney will be the first to go if these characters die. It all depends on how successful Scream 5 is and whether or not it has an opportunity to be released at the box, in theaters. But obviously it's going to be dealing with a younger generation. Now, I know nothing about this movie because there's very little about it. Okay, there's very little about it, but I think about it. Is it a direct sequel to 4? No. I don't think it's a direct sequel to 4 at all. In terms of that, the events in Scream 4 play a pivotal role in the narrative in Scream 5. I don't think that's the case at all. It's 10 years later. People have moved on. I think it's very much like what Scream 4 was to Scream 3. The events in Scream 3, the events in Scream 3 do not pay any direct impact on Scream 4. It's like a decade later, things have calmed down, have gone back to normal, and then shit begins to happen again. I think that's what's going to happen here. And it wouldn't surprise me if the main girl in the movie is Sydney's daughter, or, Gail's daughter, or, somebody's kid, or maybe somebody's kid from one of the earlier Scream movies, or, so there's that connection. Because there's got to be a reason why Sydney gets involved again, Do they still live in Woodsboro? Probably not. That would be lame. I mean, maybe Gail and Dewey live in Woodsboro, maybe. But certainly, I would be very surprised, because she didn't for 3. Or 4. I'd be very surprised if you got to think of what is likely to bring them back. Okay, well, it's starting up again. Okay, right, and can I see a scenario where none of the girls are connected to any of the cast in terms of being a family, or like the daughter or the cousin or the niece? Sure. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And maybe to subvert expectations, they won't do that. Maybe they'll just have it just somebody random. And it's the events in and of themselves that bring the original characters back, right? That's always possible. I mean, that's but Sydney is there would have to be something that brings Sydney back, because if Sydney is, I don't know where she's living. I mean, I hope she's not living in Woodsboro, but let's say she's living in fucking, I don't know, Idaho. I don't know. There'd have to be something that brings her back. And I don't know if the murders in and of themselves, or that the killer's back again, would be enough. I don't know if it would be enough, because she was reluctant in Scream 4 to get back in for obvious reasons. I mean, if she's already in the town, she's living there and she's just kind of by, collateral damage, she's tossed in there. Okay. But if she's not and she's lured back, see, that's the question. What is luring her back? Is it that her daughter gets caught up in something? Her brother's family, a cousin, a niece? Or does one of the big 3 get killed? In the opening 15 minutes of the movie, is Dewey murdered? You see. Now, I'm not saying that is what's going to happen, but I'm just saying that's a reason that I could believe, because then it becomes personal, right? It becomes personal. Okay. Now, maybe it's not Dewey. Maybe it's Gail. Maybe it's not Gail. Maybe it's neither of them, right? Maybe there's somebody else from the original 3 movies that we haven't thought of, that may bring her back. There's something that brings her back. But there's got to be something, especially for the character of Sydney, beyond just, he's back. It's like, oh, yeah, been there, done that. So I hope that, and I'd like to believe that the writing would be smarter than that. So I think that is a likely scenario, that it is either I don't know if it would be the daughter, because I don't think she'd be old enough, right? Especially if they're doing it in chronological, like in terms of real time, right? So we know that Scream 4 is 10 years after Scream 3, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of the actual time. I know it's 11 years, but in terms of the timeline, right? And then we fast forward another decade. I don't think Sydney had a daughter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think she had a daughter in Scream 4 who was like 5 years old or something, right? Or maybe she did. We didn't know about it. I don't know. You could always do that, Hollywood. But if they are fast forwarding exactly 10 years, I don't think that having it be Sydney's daughter and would make sense unless the daughter's 15. I mean, I guess you could. I mean, you could do it. You could. I mean, so instead of it's 10 years later, maybe it's 16, 17 years later, maybe, right? And her daughter's 17 or something. But what the hell is her daughter doing in Woodsboro? Or does it take place in Woodsboro? Probably. Anyway, so I feel that there's the family connection, maybe. But if I was writing this movie, I would write, and fans wouldn't like it, but tough shit. This is how you write good story. This is good storytelling when you raise the stakes. I would kill off one of the original characters in the opening frame of the movie. Not cheaply, not, shitty. It would be earned. Right? I'd probably kill off Dewey or something like that and make him go out as a hero in a blaze of glory in some sort of way that will no doubt piss people off, but you've just raised the stakes and now you've made it personal. And from a storytelling perspective, that's good shit. It means something now. You feel it as an audience member. You can really feel it. Especially if you're a big Scream fan, because you've been there from the very beginning, right? You've been there from the very beginning. Do you know what I mean? And you've watched this, and he's killed. It's like, oh my God, it means something. Will they do that? I don't know. But in the name of good storytelling, you must not be afraid to go there, to think about it, because it raises the stakes. And then there is your catalyst. That I could believe would get Sydney involved again. Because if there's just if she's living in fucking Maine, and she's living in, I don't know, Bangor, Maine with Stephen King, okay, and she's on the other side of the country or something, and she hears about the Woodsboro killer is back. I mean, unless there's, she wouldn't want to get involved. I don't believe that I don't think she sees herself as this Scream superhero. I think she gets herself involved, and I think she has gotten herself involved reluctantly by default, especially in the original trilogy. But Scream 4, she just found herself kind of caught up in it again, right? Want to make sure. What about a high school reunion? Yeah, Julian. Yeah, I mean, that's possible. That's possible. You see, I like the way you're thinking, though, right? I don't know if I would go there, a little cliche, but I like the way you're thinking, right? You're thinking along those lines. Like, what would be a reason to get her back? Yeah, because there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a reason that is believable, right? High school reunion, maybe. I could see that. 20 years, something like that. 25 years, maybe. That's not bad. I like the way you're thinking. I like the way you're thinking. That's the right headspace to sort of be in, right? But she's been a reluctant hero. She's never really wanted, it's not like she's wanted to do this. I mean, she's just sort of found herself in this. So if she's not living in Woodsboro and she's nowhere near Woodsboro, I don't believe, from a storytelling perspective, that just because shit hits the fan again in her hometown, that she suddenly feels she needs to throw on the cape. And I don't believe that. I don't think she wants anything to fucking do with it. And I think she'll hear that and go, oh my God, they're going to be looking for me. Not the killer, but the media is going to be looking for me because I'm Sydney Prescott, the original survivor of the Woodsboro murders. And she's not going to want to have anything to do with it. And she's going to lay low in her house and she's going to be fucking, whatever the case is, right? That's what I believe. So I think about this kind of stuff. Now that we've talked about that and ideas of what may bring her back, and I'm trying to get you on the wavelength from a storytelling perspective, what makes sense? What's believable? What's not corny or cheesy or shoehorned in? And that doesn't mean they're not going to do that. I don't know. I don't believe there is anything really at all about the plot. They're keeping that under wraps, understandably so. Now, according to the Wikipedia page, which is Wikipedia generally speaking, is a reliable source of information. And the reason for that is because they source the information, right? Usually you'll see, for those of you that don't know, when you see those little, numbers and links beside information, that's supposed to be the source of that information. And that's why it's allowed to be there. Well, on the Scream Wikipedia page, it says under synopsis, it says, the film follows the story of a young woman who returns to Woodsboro, only to encounter horrific murder cases connected to a notorious masked serial killer. But there is no source. There's no little number or link I can click on that tells me that this wasn't just somebody that made this shit up and put it in there, that they actually have a verifiable source that has said this. And it's not Billy Bob's movie blog. It's something a little more credible than that. Not that sometimes Billy Bob's movie blog can't be right, but at the end of the day, we're talking about probability, and we're talking about, wanting to make informed opinions. So the film follows, and again, I don't know if this is true. It just says on the Wikipedia page, the film follows the story of a young woman who returns to Woodsboro only to encounter horrific murder cases connected to a notorious masked serial killer. So, okay, let's say that's true. Let's say there is truth to that. Let's say that is somewhere somebody can find that this is actually true, that little bit of information is true. Maybe the chat will let me know. Let me know in the comments. Maybe it is true. That has been out. Okay. Well, it's a young woman who returns to Woodsboro. Well, we know the young woman's not Neve Campbell. We know, with all due respect to my fellow Canadian gal, Neve Campbell is not young. She's close to 50. So she looks great. She looks great for her age. I think she's close to 50, 48, something like that. Hey, Google, how old is Neve Campbell? I think she's 48.
47 years old.
47. Okay, so she looks great, right? And we all love Neve Campbell, but of course she's on the cusp of 50. She, you wouldn't refer to Neve Campbell or any of them as young whatever, right? So obviously this is not rocket science, but this is referring to the new cast. Okay, so a young woman returns to Woodsboro. Why is she returning to Woodsboro? Maybe that's her hometown and she went away to college or university. Likely, right? Likely, right? That's a likely scenario. She's been gone, for college or whatever, and she's returned home, right? Or maybe her family has moved away and they've all returned home. I think it's more of a college kind of thing. Maybe it's over the summer, right? Or maybe she's been away at university and college and she's come home for the summer, right? Maybe she's come home for the summer and shit begins to hit the fan throughout the summer months, which could totally happen. And maybe this girl is not connected to Sydney at all. Maybe she's not connected to Sydney at all, right? It's not a daughter, it's not a cousin, but maybe... but obviously there is something that happens that has got to lure the original three back in. And for me, I'm not saying this is it, but for me, if I was writing it, like I said, I'd probably kill off Dewey. Because I think he's the most expendable between the three. Because then it raises the stakes and it makes it far more interesting to me. But you don't kill him all. You don't do it cheaply. You do it justice to the character. But I think that's what I would do. I would approach that. Whether the studio would want that and allow that. No, we got to have more Dewey. Yeah, because we already have fucking enough of him. So that's what I think is a likely scenario. So in terms of ideas that I want to put into your head when you're thinking about Scream 5 and what could be something that is likely to happen. Because, again, these things are not... It really isn't rocket science. There's only so many things you do. There's a formula when it comes to slasher movies and storytelling, especially when you start to move into sequels upon sequels upon sequels. And you think, well, what are the most believable scenarios? And what would be reasons to lure them back in? High school reunion, somebody said, right? One of the original three get killed. It's not going to be Neve, obviously, but it's either going to be Gail or Dewey, right? Or it's a daughter. Somebody's daughter gets killed or goes missing, and I mean, these are like the staples of just this is what you do. Somebody moves back to the town because they've been away for a while. I mean, so, but I hope it's not, in terms of Sydney's character, I hope, now it does say, again, I don't know how much we can trust the Wikipedia article. I really don't. The Wikipedia article, the sentence in there under synopsis. But I would hope that, like, I could see Dewey still living in Woodsboro. You know what I mean? Gail, sure. Yeah. Sydney, I hope not. I hope Sydney is not living in Woodsboro. I hope she is somewhere else. She's moved on with her fucking life. Maybe she's got even kids of her own. And maybe her kids are like 11, 12, you know, a boy and a girl, right? Or something like that. I mean, that raises, you know, the stakes there too, if you can get them in on it. They're a little young, obviously. But I mean, you know, there's a lot you could do. But if you think this is going to be the band back together again and the sole focus is going to be on, of course, you know, the original three, obviously we know that's not true. And, you know, Hollywood never makes horror movies, especially slasher movies, to be a one and done deal, even though most of them could be. They always leave that door open for potential sequels, depending on how successful it is. So if Scream 5 or Scream is successful, then they will want to do another one. But it's likely they will start to weed the legacy characters out, which I think is the right thing to do. And it sucks for, you know, if you're my age and a little bit older or a little bit younger, but then, you know, that's what you got to do. They have to appeal to a younger generation. You know, I'll be 42 this year. And as you get older, for those of you that are younger, if you're still in your 20s, you don't really have this perspective. But as you get older, once you hit your 40s, you'll begin to realize that pop culture and entertainment, it's not made for you anymore, because in terms of the marketing and the technology, and it's all very marketed towards, you know, the younger generation. By the time you're 40, and certainly by the time you're 50, society doesn't give a fuck about you. Like, they're not making this shit for me. You know, they're not making this shit for us, right? They want to continuously appeal to the 18 to 30 demographic. They want to, you know, continuous, you know, because that's where the bulk of the money is, right? And the bulk of the bulk of the persuasive manipulation in terms of marketing is on younger generations. So, you know, yeah, they're not going to want to have, right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not, there's a science behind it. And that's what they want to do. They want to send off the legacy characters in a good way, but they also, hopefully better than Star Wars, but they also want to usher out with the old, usher in the new, and hopefully it's a seamless transition, right? Because I don't think, like, if this is successful, if Scream 5 is great, okay, and they want to make like a couple more, you know, I mean, is it possible that Nev could be in every one? I mean, you know, maybe. But I don't think that's the plan. And I don't think Nev Campbell, I mean, well, I don't know. It depends on what they're, sometimes when actors get to a certain age, especially women, and I say this knowing how the industry works, okay? This isn't a sexist comment. This is reality, okay? Especially when you're a woman and you get older, you are less in demand because of the way Hollywood works, because of the way, and I'm not saying, and again, that's a generalization is what I'm saying. I'm not saying there aren't women in their 60s who aren't in demand. I'm just saying that as you get older, it gets harder for women. Okay. So, you know, sometimes if that's all there is, you get to a certain point in your career and you're like, you know what, I'll just keep doing this because they want me, I'll do it. I can demand, you know, this kind of pay, and I'm relevant. I'm consistently relevant. Sometimes when you're younger, actors, they'll do a certain kind of role and then they'll try to sort of get away from that, understandably so, because they don't want to be typecast and they want to do other things. And then they get to a certain point in their careers and in their lives. Men too, it's not just women, but in terms of the age thing in Hollywood and how often you're hired, and is definitely affects women far more than it affects men, and we know the reasons why. But you know, when you get to a certain age, you begin to realize, oh, you know, the offers aren't coming in as much anymore. The roles aren't as deep or as exciting, or, hey, I get a Scream 5 offer, I'm in, you know what I mean? And it's a big pop culture phenomenon, you know what I mean? So you will become huge again. And it's a big kind of thing. So, sometimes actors will get like that to a point in their careers, which you heard I'm never doing another fucking, whatever. I'm never going to do it. I'm done. 20 years later, there they are. Well, there's reasons. It's not just money. But I don't see Neve Campbell, the character of Sydney, I don't see it lasting beyond this movie. Or in terms of, I don't mean she dies. I just mean like, if you're going to do the transition, if you're going to pass the torch, do it. Make your bed, lie in it, fucking do it. You know what I mean? And I think if it's smartly written and you do justice to the characters, whether you kill a character off or not, I would like to think, and this of course is just not true in a general sense because people are like, yeah, but I would like to think that people are mature enough to understand that if it serves the story and it's done really well and you walk out of the theater or you turn off your television, you're like, oh, that sucks that they died, but you know what? That was really good. Like I really felt that. It was emotional. It served the story. I understood why they made that creative choice. It made the movie better. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I get it. Because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, right? And so it's crazy to think, but with what little we know about Scream 5 coming out a year from now, this movie could have been out way before a year from now. It could have been out probably this summer. I can almost tell you that for certain. They could have dropped this thing this summer, but they didn't because obviously COVID is a big factor. The uncertainty of the theaters is a big factor, and they probably want this thing to be every studio wants their movie, especially if it's a big tentpole film like this kind of. You want to reap the benefits of the box office. You want that. So they will delay it as much as they possibly can because obviously the money they borrow is collecting interest and they have to pay back, you know what I mean? But they will do whatever they can to delay it, to give them the best probability of a movie-going experience until they just can't. I think it's still likely this thing could wind up on streaming. I think Scream is a movie that you could put onto streaming, but they want that. Every studio wants their movies in the theater. So still a year away. I'm interested to see where this goes. Again, I haven't heard too much on it from my sources, but I do know just based on, and I've talked about this before, I'm not giving you any new information. I've been talking about this for over a year, that this is a likely scenario in terms of Scream 5, or since last summer, I guess, that this is probably what's going to happen. And I'm cool to see how it all goes down. But this is a passing of the torch, 100%. They are reintroducing the world of Scream and Ghostface to a new generation and a new audience. That's why this movie's just called Scream. It's why Halloween was just called Halloween. Yes, for us who are in our 40s, who remember the original Halloween, it's dumb. And now we have 3 Halloweens. Now we're going to have 2 Scream movies. I understand why they're doing it. I can intellectualize it. But it's not something that I would do. It feels messy to me. There are reasons why. I mean, there are reasons why they drop the numbers from movies. Like we'll have like Scream 2, Scream 3, but eventually once you get past 3, and this has, been going on for decades now, but there was a reason why they decided to stop, such and such part 7, such and such part 6. I know you get that with some of the older horror movies, but there's a reason why they've essentially stopped doing that. And it's for no other reason. And I can tell you this, it's for no other reason than it sounds ridiculous and it draws attention to the fact that they've made like 13 of these things. And it's fucking just sounds dumb. It sounds, such and such part 9, it sounds cheesy. It sounds lame. It sounds like you don't know what the fuck you're doing and you don't know how to end a fucking story. You just keep going on and on and on and on. And psychologically to the audience, even if you don't realize it consciously, it sounds silly, right? Die Hard Part 19 sounds silly. There's a reason why in Back to the Future Part 2, they have, Jaws 19, right? They're poking fun at the idea of sequels and how sequels just go on and on and on, right? And stories and go on and on and on and on. where psychologically, if you just call a movie such and such redemption, such and such revival, such and such, there's a lot of R's in there, redemption, revival, retribution, resurgence, resurrection. There's a lot of R's in there, revenge, but if you call it that, it even though it's still the 10th movie in a franchise, somehow psychologically, via marketing, it works better. It works better, right? Because you don't have it in your face, out of sight, out of mind, kind of, you're not drawing direct attention to that it's part 35, and that's why they stopped doing it. So anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on Scream 5. You can comment below and let me know if you're watching this after the fact and not watching live. I would love to know, are you excited about Scream 5? What do you think the story is going to be based on, maybe something you've heard, but based on some of the things that I've talked about here, giving you some sort of ideas of how to kind of look at the film. And again, it's not rocket science. It's just thinking about the series, thinking about what is likely, what's probable, and thinking about the characters, what we know so far. And remember, this kind of information can change, right? What I've told you here can change based on new information that comes out. That's how it's done, is that, here's what I think based on this information here. Right? And then if new information comes out to continue to support that, then I'll continue to think that. But if suddenly new information came out and said, no, Sydney is now the chief of police of Woodsboro and she's a trained black belt and she, whatever, well then my thoughts are going to change. I'll think that's probably really lame, but then I'm like, oh, okay, I guess she's living there then, I guess. Okay. But anyway, I would love to know your thoughts. Are you excited about it? Are you not excited about it? What are some of your favorite Scream movies? I'm a big fan of the original in the sense that I thought it was for what it was supposed to be. I thought it was, it was cute. Like it was fun. It was a fun one and done kind of thing. I'm not somebody that's a big fan of the sequels. I do think 4 is probably better than 3. But I'm just wondering, how long can we milk this cow? I mean, I kind of say that with every horror franchise, really. But anyway, I would like to know your thoughts and what you think about it, what you think the story is going to be, what you think the narrative is going to be. How do you feel about that this is likely a passing of the torch film? How do you feel about... Where do you want it to go? Do you think it's necessary? Are you excited that the directors that directed Ready or Not are directing this movie? Do you think they're going to do justice? It's not Wes Craven. It's the first Scream movie that Wes Craven didn't direct. But then again, part 3, it wasn't that great. What do you think that matters, right? A lot of people can get very emotionally attached to a director, even though the director hasn't directed a good version of the movie, say, in a while, right? Or whatever the case is, right? Sometimes that can happen too. But let me know your thoughts. I want to know all your Scream 5 thoughts below. I would really like to know. Let's go over to the chat room and see what you guys are saying here. I know a couple of super chats came in. Let's see. Gary Rangel sends in a $5 super chat and says, Dave, I think Sydney will be reluctant to get back in the action. She always is at first, but I think what will lure her out again is the phone call from Ghostface. You see, Gary, I'm hoping that's not what happens. I'm hoping that's not what happens, Gary. And you want to know why I hope that's not what happens? Because that's always what happens. And I don't want that to happen. That's what happened in Scream 2, essentially. It's what happened in Scream 3. It's happened in Scream 4. To a degree, is what I'm saying. I remember she opened the trunk and see. But I'm just saying that we've seen that before. We've seen her. She's always reluctant to get into the action. She is the reluctant hero. Right? That's her character. She's the sweet girl next door, I don't know if I want to get involved. And then she gets involved, and I get it. And it doesn't mean that she hasn't had an arc over the 4 movies. She certainly could be stronger now, right? I would like to see a bit of that. Maybe less shy, less timid, and seeing her a little stronger. But it doesn't mean that she's full on fucking Sarah Connor and she wants, and at the drop of a hat, she's there. For me, it's got to be, I'm hoping it's not this. I'm really hoping it's not this. That Sydney lives in like I said, Portland, Maine or something. I don't know. thousands of miles away, and Ghostface calls her, "Hello, Sydney." You know, and she's like, and she drops the phone and, "I'm in Woodsboro. Are you coming back?" Whatever. It's like, it's lame. It's bad writing. It's cheap. It's chintzy. It's lazy. It's lazy. For me, I want the stakes to be higher. Right? I want the stakes to be higher, which is why I said that maybe Dewey should be killed in the first act of the movie, or in the first like 10 minutes of the movie. Like, we open with him, you know, it's 10 years later. Maybe he's the chief now or something. I don't know. Or was he the chief in part 4? I can't remember. But maybe I don't know. Maybe he's retired. I don't know. But he's there and he notices something strange, you know, and something begins to happen. He's investigating and he gets killed. He gets killed by Ghostface, but he gets killed saving somebody or something. So you can honor him as a hero as well. That's cool to me, man. That's fucking cool. I get goosebumps thinking about that because I think of the stakes. You know, now it's personal. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Because I believe would bring her across the country. You know what I mean? Not a call from Ghostface. You know, I just we've seen it before. It's got to be, for me, Gary, for me, it's got to be more than that. Oh, Liam says Dewey was the sheriff in 4. Thank you, Dewey. Thank you. I haven't seen 4 in a little bit. Okay, so maybe he's still the sheriff, right? Maybe he's still the sheriff, and that's cool. Or maybe he's retired now, right? Maybe he's retired, or maybe he's like, hey, raise the stakes even more. Right? And, you know, yeah, I know this sucks, but this is good. It sucks for a reason, because it pulls on your heartstrings. That's good storytelling, right? Because then you get emotionally invested, right? And it's reality. Maybe he's a few weeks from retiring, right? Maybe he's going to retire early. I mean, he's only in his 50s, right? But maybe he's retiring early. He's a few weeks from retiring, you know, and he gets murdered by Ghostface. You know what I mean? Like, that's intense. And I know there's many fans out there that are going to be like, "Oh, that sucks, man. No, that sucks." Yes, it does suck. And that's why it's good, because it makes you feel for the character. It makes you feel emotional. It draws you in. You know what I mean? You're invested emotionally now, rather than just the same fucking shit we've seen in every fucking movie. So yes, I totally think I'd want to go that way. But yeah. Gary, I think it's got to be more than just that, man, because we've seen it before. Frank Riker sends in a $5 super chat. Here's a super chat if we can talk about early Hungarian cabinet making instead. Yes, Frank, of course, is not the biggest Scream fan. Well, the Hungarian cabinet making is fascinating, Frank. I mean, I remember when my Uncle Bob was making Hungarian cabinets, and he would saw off the end pieces and make little donuts out of them and feed them to squirrels. It was fascinating. Oh, Frank. It's great stuff. Let's see here. I didn't miss any other super chats, so that's good. Dewey would be in his late 40s or early 50s. Yes, that's right. Well, how old is, hey, Google, how old is David Arquette?
49 years old.
He's 49. That's right. So maybe that's why I said maybe he's retiring early, right? Maybe he's done, you know, maybe he's moving, maybe he's transferring to a bigger, higher paying job in a big city or something, right? Not like New York or LA, but like a medium-sized, you know, city, like, I don't know, St. Louis or Baltimore or Philadelphia. Well, that's pretty big too. But do you know what I'm saying? Maybe he's got a promotion to go off to the FBI or something. You know what I mean? And they want him there, or I don't know, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean he has to be that he has to retire, but something that is, see, it's something that from a writing perspective, you want it to be something that is extremely positive in this character's life, that he's looking forward to, that he can't wait for, that he's worked hard for. Now, I know Dewey's a few bricks shy of, you know, a house, but you know, you can spin it in a way that makes it believable. And he's so excited. He's so excited. And that's why it makes it so unfortunate and sad for the character, or for you as an audience member, when he's killed. You know what I mean? And that's how you do it. That's good writing, you know, because you want to affect your audience. So yeah, maybe it's something like that. And I don't know if that's what they're going to do. I doubt that's what they're going to do. And the reason why I doubt is because I don't think they have the balls to do it. At least, I mean, maybe they will, but I just think that, you know, the thing that pisses me off is, and I'm not saying anybody in this chat room is like this, because I don't know you guys. So what I'm about to say is not personal to anybody specifically. I'm talking generally. I wish fandom was more mature in a general sense. And I wish fandom could understand how vital and awesome it can be to storytelling when you do kill off characters in the right way, in an honorable way, not in a chintzy, shoehorned in way, but that serves the story. You don't bring them back, you know, but it serves the story. It makes the story stronger. It makes their legacy stronger. It makes the overall arcing themes stronger. It makes the next generation stronger. I wish we were more, and I say we as a collective, I wish fandom was more mature, because I think Hollywood hesitates a lot because everybody goes, fuck, and it's like, shut up. I want to it's like, God, do you not get it, man? Nothing lasts forever. Good storytelling has a beginning, a middle, and an end, unless you're Hollywood, of course. But I'm just saying there's nothing wrong with characters dying or leaving or moving on or stories ending. It makes it better. It makes it more meaningful. You know what I mean? It makes it more meaningful. And I'm not suggesting that Dewey needs to die in this new Scream movie. I'm just saying that we were talking about scenarios that would lure Sidney back into the fold. And that's something that I would be okay with, because it's like, whoa, like shit just got fucking real. Oh shit. And it's not the old, hello, Sidney. You know, it's like, oh, he's back. And, you know, and then she's into it again. It's something more personal. It's something you've raised the stakes, you know. I'd be totally down for it. Or maybe it's not her. Maybe it's Gail. Right? Maybe she goes. I think if they were to kill somebody for some reason, I think they would do it with Dewey, because Gail and Sidney, although they're friendly with each other, they've always had sort of a kind of a iffy relationship. To a degree. I mean, I know they're, you know, but I think that would be interesting to see them team up again. But anyway, it's fascinating stuff, guys. It's fascinating stuff. But I just wish that the world of fandom could be more mature and understand the value in, and again, it has to be done right and not shoehorned in. But when you do things really smartly and it can be very powerful. It can be so powerful. You know what I mean? It can be so powerful and so meaningful when it's done right. That's how I feel anyway. Let's see. Moshi, am I saying that right? Moshi. I think Scream 5 will be awesome. Internet, social networks, technology, unlimited possibilities to do a good Scream movie. Do you watch the TV series? This is how you do a reboot. I did not watch the TV series. I had no interest in watching the TV series. I've heard mixed reviews on the TV series. And yes, I agree with you that there's a lot of technology that can be utilized today. And here's the thing, is that I can see, and I agree with you that that's what they're going to do. I don't think they're going to use, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say what they're going to do exactly. And the reason for that is because there are movies, and there have been for some time, that have been utilizing this technology. And there are a lot of, I mean, Unfriended, Dark Web, Host, you know, Searching. And there's a plethora of others that have utilized social media and Skype and Zoom and, you know, whatever. And so there's nothing original about doing that anymore. It makes sense to do it because that's the era we're living in, but it's not new. It's not like, whoa, Scream 5 is utilizing Zoom. Like, yeah, no, been there, done that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's wow, it's been done before. I don't think we're necessarily tired of it yet because we're still living in it. But I just don't want it to feel juvenile. And maybe that's my age talking. But I would like there to be a little bit of maturity to the movie. You know, it's going to be spoofy and a little self-aware and mocking, and it's not going to go into total spoof territory. When I say spoofy, I say spoofy, not spoof, because there's spoofish elements to Scream, right? Like in the original, when Wes Craven was dressed up as Freddy Krueger, essentially as the janitor. He had the Freddy Krueger sweater on, he had the hat, he was, sweeping, and he had a name tag that said Fred. Like, come on. I mean, you can't get any more spoofy than that, and that's in a movie that's not supposed to be a spoof, right? So there's self-aware things like that, and I think they're going to carry that over 100%, and you totally want to do that. But I just don't want it to feel chintzy. I don't want it to feel cheap, and things we've seen before. And I would imagine that they're not going to do that. You know what I mean? But yes, is today's technology going to be utilized? 100%. It's not going to be landlines, man, unless they tip their hat in a scene. Like I said, Sydney picks up her cordless phone because for some fucking reason she still has it. Or somebody's grandmother has it and, hello, grandma. I mean, whatever. I mean, I don't know, right? I could see that. But, and I think cell phones will be used for sure. But I'll be curious to see if they use cell phones like as actual phones. Because, like I said, nobody uses them for phones anymore. I don't. I mean, I will use my phone to talk to my agent when they call. But 9 times out of 10, even my agents will email me. You know what I mean? So I'm not talking to my agents on the phone a lot, but I will them. But if it's like my girlfriend or if it's my friends or we're emailing, we're texting, they're not phones. They're not phones. They are phones, but they're pocket computers. That's what they are, because that's what we use them 99% of the time for. And they're little pocket computers that just so happen to make phone calls. Isn't that cool? Hey, you want a pocket computer that can make a phone call? Sure. There you go. We got them. We use them to shoot video far more than we ever make phone calls. Intel Wild, my man, says it's me, Billy, will kick Scream 5's butt. Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. They had 10 times our budget and probably 30 times more than that, our budget. And obviously Scream 5 is a feature-length film. But we always appreciate Intel Wild's support and enthusiasm for It's Me, Billy. Yes, It's Me, Billy is in post-production right now. The teaser trailer is on my channel. If you have not seen the teaser trailer for It's Me, Billy, it is on my channel right now. The Black Christmas fan film, of course, that we just shot over the end of November. We're very excited about it. It's in post-production, and we're aiming for a spring release. So Bruce is supposed to be coming over tomorrow and continuing the post-production process. So things are looking good. Things are looking good. We are excited. You guys helped to bring Billy back. And there's so many things I want to say. Like I was saying this on a Patreon thing the other day. There's a lot of things I would like to say about It's Me, Billy, and about our ideas and reasons. But I have to wait until the movie's released because I would be spoiling things. So there's a lot we still want to say about the film and our ideas and what you'll see and all that kind of stuff. But we have to wait because we don't want to, like I said, we don't want to spoil anything. Frank Riker sends in a very generous $20 super chat. I haven't even read it, and knowing Frank's disdain for the Scream films, I have a feeling I know what this is going to be. Here's my idea, Frank says. Sidney comes back and Dewey accidentally shoots her. He covers it up by bringing the Ghostface killer back, and Gail finds out. She'll keep it quiet with more alimony, but shoots her too and claims she's Ghostface. Yes! Frank, my main man, I am totally down. Let's do it. That is the way to do it, ladies and yeah, I'm down. I'm totally down. I think that would be fun. I think it'd be fun. Can you imagine? I mean, you don't even need the support. You don't even need the new characters in there. Or he shoots them all too. It's a 5-minute and 37-second movie. That's what it is. Eric Chung says, Dave, Dewey thinks too hard and dies, fading away while looking off into the binary sunset. thinks too hard and dies. Thinks too hard. I'm now imagining The Last Jedi. That's hilarious. Obviously, the absolute best way the character, I agree with you. Dewey force projects himself across the country to Sydney, who is sunbathing by her pool, and he shows up as a force ghost. He's like, Sydney, we need you back in Woodsboro. That's what happens. Oh man, that would be fun. That'd be fun. Demand Hammer AR-15 for life says, Sir Dave, what if the killer introduces themselves with new technology to make his presence known, but then forces them to utilize old technology like landlines, etc., as an obstacle? Feels a little gimmicky to me. And a little sort of like, we want to use old technology, so this is how we're going to do it. It feels a little gimmicky to me. I don't think they're going to do that. I wouldn't do that. I would just try to find a way to utilize, because, they want to appear. It's not us, guys. It's us to a degree, like the original Scream fans, sure. And when I say I'm a fan, I'm a fan of the first movie, and I find enjoyment in some of the sequels, but I'm not a big fan of the franchise. But I will say that it's not us it's us that they're targeting to a degree, but there's going to be a huge focus on making this fresh, new, but familiar, and that's what it's all about: fresh, new, but familiar, and there's many ways that they could do that. But I don't do you remember when, and look, this is a terrible movie. It's a god awful film. And certainly we didn't feel the impact. Well, maybe somebody did, but when Sean dies at the beginning of Jaws: The Revenge, okay. I know you didn't see that one coming, right? Deep cut right there. When Sean dies at the beginning of Jaws: The Revenge, right? It in terms of the story, in terms of the overall bigger, larger story, even though it's a terrible movie, it means something, right? You know what I mean? The whole idea of the shark, now it's personal and the shark's going after the family, just fucking ludicrous. It's dumb. It was a dumb movie. It was terrible. Even Lorraine Gary says that she only did it, because she needed the money. It was awful. No offense, Lance Guest, but the movie was terrible. And Michael Caine, geez. But it's that kind of thing I'm talking about, right? It's that kind of thing where you have a beloved character that is murdered and whatever. And yeah, I think that's the way to go. I don't think they're going to do that, but I'd be totally down for it. Oliver Mercer sends in a 10-pound super chat and says, yes, indeed, you don't kill characters like Newt and John Connor in Alien 3 and Dark Fate. It's lazy writing. How about Stu returning as... Well, I don't think that's lazy writing, Oliver. I don't. I actually, and spoiler alert, but it's been over a year, and if you haven't seen it, you're not going to see it. Obviously, in Terminator Dark Fate, they killed John Connor. I actually didn't have an issue with that. And I don't think people would have had an issue with that if Dark Fate was Terminator 3. And there was no there was no T3, there was no Salvation, there was no Genesis. I think people, and this movie came out in 95. Do you know what I mean? That's a different ball game. And you nurture the story, you nurture the story in a way where it makes sense. It's like, oh my God, holy shit, what the fuck, right? I think it feels blasphemous. I think it feels chintzy. I think it feels insulting to Terminator fans because, so much of the series has been about John Connor. So whether you like T3 or not, whether you like Salvation or not, whether you like Genesis or not, it's always been about John Connor. At the end of the day, he's the Laurie Strode of the fucking franchise. So I think that it felt like, what, like all of a sudden, what's going on? And then you're taking it in a new, but I don't think people would have had the anger they would have had if Dark Fate was something that came out in 95, a few years after T2. I don't think they would have. So for me, it's not about killing beloved characters. I don't think should ever be off the table. It's, does it make sense to the story? And when I say make sense, I mean that we're not just doing this for shock value. We're not doing this because we don't know what else to do. We're not doing this just to raise the stakes, to be avant-garde. No, we've written a story where this makes sense, and it makes sense to the stakes and the other characters' arcs and the lessons and the morals and the messages, all that stuff, right? A beloved character becomes a sacrifice, but a sacrifice for the prosperity, I don't know if I want to say that, becomes a sacrifice for the legacy of the series, of the message, of the movie, right? I think people will be okay. I think most people, because it's earned. The death of John Connor didn't feel earned, and that's why it angered people. It didn't feel earned. When you have a death that feels earned, people forgive it because they get it. They understand its emotional weight. They understand its emotional value. You know what I mean? So I don't think any death should be off the table. Alien 3, I can't remember, but I don't think any death should be off the table, ever, 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 including Michael Myers. But let's see here. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I don't believe I did. I did not. Let me see here. Okay, we got about another 20 minutes or so left in the show today. Great to see so many people turning out. Not surprising though, talking Scream. What's funny? When I do live shows, I will get, no doubt, my highest audience whenever I talk Halloween. When I talk Halloween, especially when it's something breaking or something new and exciting, if I do a live stream, I mean, the most viewers I've ever got doing a live stream was over 500. And I've done that twice. Bruce and I achieved that this is a couple years ago, when they first dropped the first images of Halloween 2018 with Michael in the closet doorway. And I think you remember that, right? Bruce happened to be over at that time. This is like, what? I don't know, late May 2018, something like that. He was over and we jumped on live and we had like 500 and something people tune in. I did a live stream about a year and a bit ago looking at some of the behind the scenes stuff of Halloween Kills. And I had like 500 and something. It's crazy. If I do a McRae live and I talk Halloween, I get maybe 200 and something. If I talk Friday the 13th or Elm Street, it's funny. I'll usually break 100, but it's low hundreds. It's low hundreds. Today we're at 157. We topped 165 at one point. Talking Scream. It's funny. I never get the sense that my audience are big Scream fans. Like I get a sense that they would prefer Freddy or Jason over Ghostface, but the numbers don't lie. And for whatever reason, I think there's a lot of people that watch me that are either closeted Scream fans that maybe don't like to talk about it because maybe they're, I don't know, ashamed or something. I don't know. Or there's just not a lot of Scream content online. Not a lot of people talking Scream. I mean, listen, there has to be better, more informed people in the Scream franchise than me, I'm sure, talking about it. But I always find it interesting. I find it fascinating that Scream tends to get a lot of people tuning out. Yeah, Frank tunes out. Tuning in, I should say. Neil Rook says, Dave, what would you say is a classic Canadian dish? Oh, here in England, we have fish and chips and English breakfast. Well, I mean, the cliche thing is poutine, which is French fries, gravy, and cheese. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Canadian dish, I really have no idea. Because the thing that's so funny, and again, I say this, you know, I mean, if you're, I say this because it's at least been my experience living 41 years on this earth, living in Toronto, living in, you know, Ottawa, I mean, I've spent all my time in Ontario, of course, living. I haven't lived anywhere else, but other provinces. I'm sure there are there are definitely things. There are. I don't know what they are, but Canada's a very, Canadians would hate me to, you know, say this, but we're very Americanized. You know, there are differences 100% in our culture and maybe in our temperament and our personalities, sure. But at the end of the day, there isn't a culture shock. Like you've heard me say before on my channel, like you don't cross the border from New York into Ontario and be like, holy shit, I'm in this foreign land. No, it looks exactly the same. Whenever I'm in the States, you know, if I'm going to a, you know, Sabres game or whatever, I cross the board, it just looks like I'm still in Canada. Like it's, yeah, we have the same stores, the same food, the same movies, you know, same, you know, we have Walmarts. I mean, there are things we don't have, obviously, but it's not like driving to Canada is not like driving to Mexico, right? You cross the border into Mexico, you know you're in Mexico, right? You know you are. I mean, it's a poorer country, you know, you know you're in Mexico. You don't really get that sense. Like I could plop somebody who's never been here right in the middle of, you know, some small town in Ontario and say you're in some small town in Pennsylvania and you'd believe it no problem. Like it's not like you're going to go, wow, the cars look so different or the buildings are so different. No, it just looks the same. So that's always been my experience. That doesn't mean there aren't Canadian things, and I'm not proud to be Canadian, and that we definitely don't have our differences. We definitely do, 100%. But dish food, I don't know. We have burgers, fries. We eat all the same shit. You know, I go to the store, I get all the same stuff. You know, I don't know. I'm not really sure. Poutine, I think is just, but I'll say poutine, even though that's like the go-to for everybody. Oh, poutine, you know what I mean? But French fries, gravy, and cheese. Brandon Gregory says, you have a maple leaf on the McDonald's sign. Yeah, that we do. Yeah, that we do, which I think is so silly because who cares? I mean, obviously it's a McDonald's in Canada. We know that. I'm in Canada. I don't need to see. No, it's true. And we'll have that kind of leaf on a few things, but I mean, it's the same, guys. Like it really is. If you've been to Canada, you'll know that, yeah, it's different, but there's not a culture shock here. It really isn't. It really isn't. The major difference if you were to drive, of course, is you have to remember that it's kilometers an hour and not miles an hour. That's it. But we have the same cars. We drive on the same side of the road. You know, and gas is in liters and not gallons. Like it's little things like that. You know what I mean? But in terms of like food and department stores and restaurants and, you know, I mean, we have McDonald's, we have Burger King, we have Wendy's, you know, we have Subway, you know, we have, I mean, pick your fucking, now we don't, you have a lot of things we do. Essentially, there are things we have. There are things that the States have that we don't have in terms of restaurants. Like we don't have, you know, In-N-Out Burger here, or like there's chains like that we don't have. But a lot of the big stuff we do have are American anyway. I mean, you know, Tim Hortons is Canadian, although it was bought by an American company. So there are Tim Hortons in the States now. The donut place that started here. That's a Canadian company. That's Canada's, you know, Dunkin' Donuts. And they're all over the place here. So I know that has made its way into the States, which is kind of cool because usually Canadian companies don't do well in the States. So that's cool. But yeah, I just don't, for me, I don't see the differences as much as some people would like. I think people would like to think we're more different than we are and we are, like if anything, our political system is the most different. Like we're a, you know, monarchy, or like we're a parliamentary system. Like it's completely different. Like that's very different, right? But in terms of like just day-to-day shit, like food and stuff, I don't know. I just don't see the differences. You know, I mean, I do, but I don't. You know what I mean? Anyway, not to harp on it, but it's just I think when people, and I'm not saying that you've never been to Canada, but when people have never been to Canada, from the States especially, and they're like, what's it like in Canada? You know, and it's like, what's it like in the States? Well, it's like this. It's like that here, essentially. Like we're like a mini version. Like we are essentially the 51st state. Like it sounds so, I know that sounds like Dave, you don't sound very patriotic. No, I'm very proud to be Canadian and I'm glad I live in this country. And I think we live in a great country. I do, but I'm not naive. I don't like to pretend that we're so exotic, we're so different than the States. Nah, not really. Not really. I mean, not in terms of culture, in terms of just like first look, you cross the border, you go to restaurants or whatever. You don't feel it. I mean, if you go to Europe, you feel it. You go to Mexico, well, yeah. I mean, Canada is probably the most American country. I will say this, Canada is probably the most American country that isn't America. Let's put it that way. 100%. No doubt about it. You don't get that in England or France or Germany. You can't do that over there. I don't know if there's anywhere else in the world that you can feel more like an American when not being in the States. And and again, I'm not saying we don't have our differences and Canada doesn't have things that aren't distinctly Canadian. We do, and there are, but that's my experience anyway. That's my experience. Let me see what's going on. I don't think I missed any super chats. Famous Canadian dish, Kraft dinner and ketchup. Well, but Kraft dinner is macaroni and cheese, right? Kraft dinner is just, we call it Kraft dinner, but we're just calling it because of the brand, right? The brand is Kraft. So we just call it Kraft dinner. But you guys have that in the States too. The exact same thing. Whether you put ketchup on it or not, I don't know. But it's not like you can't get Kraft dinner in the States. You can, because Kraft dinner is just macaroni and cheese. That's all it is. And it's just the brand name is Kraft, So again, that's an example where it's like, it's not really different. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. Loonies and toonies. Yeah. Money. Yeah. That's another thing that is definitely different is the currency, but it's not like we're like pesos or pounds. We're dollars. It's Canadian dollars. The same thing. Like you can figure out what something costs. It's the same thing, it's the dollar system, so, obviously the American dollar is worth more than the Canadian dollar. I think our dollar is like 73 cents to the US dollar or something, but it's still the dollar. It's still a dollar. You know what I mean? So it's not like you got to do any conversion when you're up here. Oh, that's $6 Canadian. What is that in American in terms of like being a different currency altogether, right? Like if you go to, if you're dealing in pounds or pesos or something or euros or something, and you're used to dealing in dollars, you got to be like, oh, what is that in dollars? I got to but in Canada, not so much. You know what I mean? Liam says, Dave needs mood and atmosphere, more blue lighting. I have blue lighting here. That's not why I did that though. I just like the blue lighting I think it's easier on the eyes. Warren Armour says, does Canada have Chick-fil-A? I don't think we do. We got Popeye's chicken though. We got KFC, Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, like I said, Subway, there's Dunkin' Donuts here. There's Starbucks here. There's Walmart and, fucking Macy's. And we did have Target here for about 2 years. And then Target, we used to have a Canadian retailer here called Zellers, Zellers. And it was here for years. It was Canadian, right? It was like the Canadian Walmart. And then Walmart came in and made it very difficult for Zellers. And then Target came up here about 5 years or so ago and bought out all of the Zellers stores and turned them into Target. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Hey, we get Target now. But the stupid fucking thing is that their prices were way more expensive than Walmart. Like way more expensive than Walmart. So people were like, why would I shop at Target when I can get this exact same fucking shit at Walmart for like $10 less? No, I don't know if it's $10 less, but for less, right? So Target came up here thinking they were going to like steamroll and fucking to huge success. And they were here a year and they had to pull out because they just lost all sorts of money. And I was disappointed because I actually like Target. And there are certain things that Target has that Walmart doesn't have. So I was very disappointed when they pulled out, but they did. And now, so we no longer have Target, but we did for a little bit, and maybe they'll come back. Probably not. They probably won't come back, but we have a Walmart like on every fucking corner up here. Da-na-na-na, da-da-da-da. I think the biggest, Brandon Gregory says, I think the biggest difference in my experience, how expensive food is in Canada, even factoring in the exchange rate, you're paying more, especially when you get Northern Ontario. Yeah, well, it is. I mean, we have higher taxes, right? Depending on, I mean, here in Ontario, taxes are 13%. So it's called HST, the Harmonized Sales Tax. So if I was to buy, let's say I was to buy, I don't know, well, I was to buy this phone. Right? And say this phone was $200. Well, it would be $200 plus HST. So it'd be $200 plus 13%. So it can be expensive, and it varies from state to state, from province to province is a little bit, it varies, but it's all in and around that ballpark. But I mean, we also have free healthcare. And when I say free healthcare, I don't mean that it's like, if I wanted to get, it's basic healthcare, right? So it's like I can go to the doctor and get a checkup, and I have a health card that allows me to do that. And I can see the doctor and get a checkup for free, right? Most of the blood work, unless it's something specific, I can get done for free. Okay. But medication's not free. It's not like all of the, if the doctor, say I have a cold and the doctor says, here's a prescription, it's not free. I got to go pay for that. And if I don't have insurance, then it's going to cost a lot more, right? So when people say that Canada has free healthcare, they mean just basic healthcare. Your doctor's visits are covered. Dentist is not free up here. It's not free. If you don't have insurance, it can be very expensive. So that's not covered up here. That's not included in the free healthcare in Canada. So our taxes are more expensive, but it also goes towards, but there's pros and cons to it. Like there's definitely pros in having free healthcare in that sense, but there's also cons too, right? There's wait lines that can be really long, and sometimes privatized healthcare can be better because you pay more, but you're paying for it and you're seen immediately. It's great service, whatever the case is, right? So there's pros and cons to both. But definitely there are some people that when they hear that Canada has free healthcare, they just think that it's just free, like everything's free. And that's not the case. That's not the case at all. Not at all. It's just your basic doctor visit. I feel sick. I'm going to go to the doctor. It's free. I don't have to pay anything because it's covered by, the government. But if he prescribes something to me, that's not free. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, we're talking about Canada here a lot, and but I am proud to be Canadian, of course. I think we live in a great country. And I mean, really, at the end of the day, even though there's some crazy shit going down in the States right now, to live in Canada or the States, generally speaking, on any normal day, I think we're all very lucky to live in North America. I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, Jesus, we could be living in some crazy shit in the world. We're all very, very lucky. Frank Riker says, Canada runs out of toilet paper just like America. Oh, fuck, it was insane. It was insane, Frank. Back in March, it was absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Let me see here. I love all these people talking about Canada. Hans Gruber says, high taxes with free healthcare equals scammed. Well, there's definitely, like I said, there's pros and cons to both. That's for sure. But having basic doctor visits covered is always nice. You know what I mean? Is always nice. I mean, that's nice. I just wish the dentist was like that too, but it's not. Let me see here. Jamie Visha, am I saying that? Montreal is one of my favorite cities. Montreal is great city. And generally, I think Canadians are much friendlier. Yeah, we definitely have that stereotype that Canadians are friendlier. I don't know if Canadians are friendlier or if the culture is just more passive. I think the culture is more passive. Unless you get into Toronto, like I said, Toronto is probably the most Americanized place in Canada because it's such a big city. But in terms of generally speaking, I think it's a more passive country because there's not as many people, right? And we're so spread out, and so I think there's this vibe and aura of friendly. But I've been many places in the States where I've met wonderfully friendly people who would give you the shirt off their back too, and I just think that. Because there's 320 million people in the States, there's, more opportunities for people to be dicks. You know what I mean? We only have about 40 million people here. Well, if we had 320 million people here in Canada, there'd be more assholes and dicks and scumbags here too. So I think, generally speaking, I think that population probably has something to do with it. But yeah. Evil Alex says, what you want for Ghostface to be the real. The reveal in Scream 5, new character, returning character from older films, or they're never reveal who it was. That's a very good question, buddy. And, I think at the end of the day, I've always said that I think it would be cool if the killer from Scream 5 turned out to be the real Ghostface, like the one you hear on the machine. Or on the phone. And I understand that in the previous Scream films, they justified the voice being different through a voice box. I get all that kind of stuff. But somehow I've always been partial to exploring the idea that Billy and Stu and, they were just doing somebody else's dirty work. That they were manipulated and persuaded into doing somebody else's dirty work. And then now the real daddy, not that they weren't really Ghostface, but that the real daddy comes out. I don't know. There's something about that I think is worth exploring. That doesn't mean that we would definitely set on that and do that. But there's something about that I think might be interesting. To at least explore, right? And then at the end of the day, if you're like, I don't know, it's maybe feels a little too chintzy. Well, then you just toss it to the side. But I wonder if they've ever explored that. I don't know. It'd be interesting. I think so. Anyway, let me see here. Oh, no. Let me see what's going on. I'm looking at people. Jonathan Nichols says, Dave, thoughts on the Wrong Turn reboot coming out? I've seen the original Wrong Turn, haven't seen any of the sequels. I did watch the trailer for the Wrong Turn reboot, which is called Wrong Turn or Wrong Turn something. It's a, I don't know. I don't really care about the Wrong Turn franchise, really. So I don't really care about the reboot, I guess. I'll watch it when I see it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it looked like Wrong Turn. It looked like a remake of Wrong Turn. That's what it looked like, a remake of Wrong Turn. But it isn't a remake, it's a sequel, and they're going to connect it, but it's fresh. That's what they're doing now. Like, in case you guys haven't noticed, for those of you that are still watching, in case you guys haven't noticed that there's a pattern that's beginning to develop here, and whether it's Wrong Turn, whether it's Scream, whether it's Halloween, that there is this pattern that looks like it's developing, that let's create a sequel that isn't just a sequel, it's a reboot to introduce it to a new audience, but we'll just pepper some things in there to bring in the old audience, because they need to bring in the old audience, right? Because we are the ones that are emotionally attached because of nostalgia. We are the ones that are all about the nostalgia, right? So they got to appeal to us, as well. But they want to appeal to a new generation. It's like a balancing act. And I'm noticing this pattern. So it wouldn't surprise me and I'm not saying they're going to, but it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if if a remake of Friday the 13th was a sequel just called Friday the 13th. Now, I know what you're thinking. No, you can't. Friday the 13th is something you can't do that with because of A, B, C, and D. Oh, I know. I agree with you. But it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if a sequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street was called A Nightmare on Elm Street. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And that it's not just a reboot. It's a sequel. I'm noticing a pattern here, and I'm sure you guys have too, noticed this pattern of what they're doing. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. Travis Lauderbow says, what's the drinking and tobacco age in Canada? Well, it depends on the province. In Quebec, you have to be 18 to consume alcohol. I mean, obviously people don't. But that's the legal drinking age is 18. In Ontario, where I live, it's 19. And I believe it's 19 for most of the country, if I'm not mistaken, except for Quebec. I think it's 19 for most of the country, which is why a lot of Americans who live in the northern states like New York or, wherever, like to cross the border into Canada for their 19th birthday. Especially if you live that happened all the time. Like I went to Niagara College in Welland, Ontario, which is about 20 minutes from Niagara Falls, which is about, so it's about 20 minutes from the border. And I remember when we used to go to the bars in Niagara Falls, we would meet and see a lot of Americans that had crossed the border because they could drink, because you only had to be 19, whereas in New York you had to be 21. So and the tobacco age is the same, 19. It might be 18 in Quebec again, but again in Ontario, and I think for the rest of the country it's 19. 19. Flitter says Alberta and Manitoba is 18 too. Oh, there you go. It is 18 in Alberta. 18 sounds right for Manitoba. I'm surprised it's Alberta is 18. Of course, you can look these things up. It doesn't it doesn't take long to do. 18 in Alberta and Manitoba. There you go. Warren Armour says Brokeback Mountain as bad as Crying Game. Are you talking to somebody else? Is it Brokeback Mountain? Oh, I guess you guys are talking amongst each other. I don't know. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, when we were kids, if TV shows were moved to Friday or Saturday night, it was the kiss of death. That is true. Dallas and Golden Girls, the exception. You think this is less likely today with DVR and on demand? Yes, because you have control over when you watch it. And that's why streaming it doesn't matter really anymore. Because, and I have to admit, I do miss the days. There's pros and cons to both. One of the things I loved about, what The Mandalorian was doing was they were releasing an episode a week, like it was 1992 or something like that. And you were waiting for the next, and I like that because it draws it out. It's great marketing too, because you keep the conversation going as well. So fans keep talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks, as long as the show. So if there's 10 episodes, fans will be talking about it for 10 weeks. If you release it all at once, fans will be talking about it for 3 days until they binge watched it, and then nobody's talking about it. And that's what happens with things like Stranger Things, right? You release it all at once. Stranger Things is like the hot topic for let's say like a week, right? And then that's it. It's done. So I liked, of course I didn't think about this when I was a kid, but looking back at it, there was something cool about, when you'd watch like the Golden Girls I'm an unabashed Golden Girls fan, man. Fucking love that show. Or like Cheers or Elf or, whatever, right? Elf, Three's Company. And you would watch these shows and you would, that the next episode wouldn't be till next week. And sometimes it's not a big deal if there isn't a continuation either, because most sitcoms don't continue the same story over the course of a season, right? It's not like streaming where one season is one big story arc. Back in the day with sitcoms, you may get, and you usually did, throughout one season, you would get 2 episodes that were connected. So at the end of the first episode, you would get like a to be continued, right? And then you're like, oh, and you got to tune in next week to find out what happened. But that generally isn't what happened back in the day, right? You would have a complete arc in one episode, and then the show would just end, and you would just have to wait till the next week to see the next episode. So yeah, I don't know, but certainly today there isn't that, but we weren't in control over that, right? The networks were in control over that. We had no choice but to wait. We had to wait. So we had no choice. So we never really thought about it. It didn't bother us because we had no choice and we had no other perspective. There was no streaming. We had no perspective. Kids today could never go back to 1995 or 1985 and watch a television show and have it end and have to wait a week. They couldn't do it. I mean, maybe they could because they're fans of Mandalorian. I don't know, but they couldn't do it because their head would explode. They'd fucking fall into some deep depression and lie in the fetal position in the corner of their bedroom. They wouldn't know what to do. You know what I mean? Because they're so spoiled with getting a show released all at once and watching it in one fucking sitting. So to your point, because of that, I don't think it's as problematic, because you can watch it whenever you want. So fucking you drop the shows on a Thursday, go ahead, or a Saturday, whatever. Whether it's DVR or streaming and cable is on its way out or on demand. I mean, the consumer is more in control of when we watch the content we want to watch more than ever before in history. So it's fascinating. There's definitely no doubt about it. Frank Riker sends in a super chat. This must be Frank's parting super chat. Yes, he says, for the sexy scream-hating MFers in the chat. I love it. Oh, yes, it's 1:38. I have to skedaddle. You guys are amazing. So that will do it for me here on episode 135 of McRae Live. I want to thank my moderators, of course, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, and Darren Sands for doing what you guys do. Don't forget to tune into Frank Riker and Darren Sands' podcast, the Slaughtered Lamb movie podcast, where they are great. It's hilarious. I did their Die Hard episode. So much fun. Don't forget to tune into that wherever podcasts are downloaded. The Slaughtered Lamb. Look out for that. Just some awesome stuff. They are so fun to listen to. And if you're watching after the fact, or if you're watching now but want to comment after, comment below and let me know your thoughts on Scream 5. What do you want to see? What do you think is going to happen? What is the highest probability of what you think of the direction they're going in? How do you think Nev will be brought, or Sydney will be lured back into the fold? Comment below and let me know. I'd love to know. I will be back. There's always a chance I'll be back at any time, but definitely Monday night on Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe out there. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can. There are the links right below me there. Facebook, Many Things Dave McRae. Instagram, Dave McRae79. And Twitter, The VoiceMann. That'll do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty. Cheers.